En un tiempo de cambio constante, el conocimiento se convierte en nuestra única fuerza. Enciende la tuya, viendo más episodios de EY TV. Todos los jueves, cada semana. Solo en EY TV. Presentamos otro episodio de The View from the Edge. Sin riesgo, no hay recompensa. Solo en EY TV.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you all had a fantastic week so far, and it's great to see so many of you with us today. For our loyal FinTech Americas community members, thanks for joining us once again for another exclusive episode of The View from the Edge. And of those of you that are new here, a warm welcome. It's a pleasure that you have joined us. I'm Maria Mancuso, President of FinTech Americas. And our program today provides a cold and bold look at the hottest topics and trending, igniting the financial industry, and what you and your organization need to do about them. The View from the Edge was created to dive deep into the truth and tenets of leadership, adaptation, and innovation in the new world of finance, with Chris Colbert, former Managing Director of the Harvard Innovation Labs and Chairman of the Board of Directors of FinTech Americas, to help you along the journey. And talking about hot topics, I think it is fair to say that the topic today is the elephant in the room for many organizations, because we are going to delve into the unexpected negative impact that technology could have and is having on productivity. Although, people may think otherwise, but we'll see about that. So let's face it, while technology has revolutionized the way we work and live, it is essential to be mindful of the potential negative impact on productivity and that it has, and start thinking how to address the challenge. Let me share with you, before we start, some insights. There is a report from EY Parthenon, US worker productivity plunged by 2.7 in the first quarter of 2023, compared to the same period last year. We are talking about the biggest economy in the world. And the World Bank estimates that annual productivity growth since 2000 in Latin America has remained only between 0.2 and 0.5%. This is interesting because people are spending an average of 4.8 hours a day in their mobile apps. Yes, you listen correct, 4.8 hours a day, according to the app monitoring firm App Annie. And nearly 60% of the world uses social media, and the typical user spends more than 2 hours a day on it, according to GWI. So there is another research from Stanford and MIT that find out that artificial intelligence improve up to 35% the productivity of novice and low-skilled workers. Meanwhile, it showed minimal impact on experienced or high-skilled workers, and even at times served as a distraction. So it is clear that the challenges that we face is to understand that technology alone is rarely enough to create significant benefits. The key lies in us, in humans, and how we use technology and for what purpose, and how the culture of each organization adapts to technology in a positive way. So we believe today's topic is critical for the banking industry, and it's going to be a deep and impactful presentation. And it's going to be even richer thanks to everybody's interaction. So please use the chat to comment. Por favor, hagan preguntas en el chat. Las pueden hacer en inglés o en español. Y nosotros las traducimos so we can make it more interactive and more interesting. Also, keep in mind that during the event, we're going to be using poll questions to contribute to the conversation. So make sure you get your votes, and I would love to hear what you think. They will be shown next to comments tab on the right on your screen. ¿Correcto? Así que tendremos también encuestas. Así que por favor, denos un comentario para que los podamos compartir con todos. Los resultados se presentan de manera agregada. So not enough for me. I'm delighted to welcome our chairman and former managing director of Harvard Innovations Labs, Chris.
Hello, Maria.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Before we start, do you have anything to share with the...
Yes, I'm going to share what I share every time we do the View from the Edge. I share that I am always so impressed by you and your presentation and the dynamism and positivism you bring to the show, and I'm grateful to be your partner on this endeavor.
Oh, please. Oh, okay, thank you. I may be a blush. No, but I thought on a personal level that we have something to share with you. I don't know if you want to, but
Oh yeah, my big news is 7:30, 8 p.m. last night. My eldest son and his wife had a baby. So I am a grandfather. I know that ages me or dates me, and hopefully I'm still relevant to some percentage of you. But the baby is doing well, and her name is Emma Sophia Colbert. So welcome, Emma Sophia, to...
Welcome, Emma Sophia, all the blessings, and first time grandpa. So yes, it's official now.
Yeah, exactly. And I also think your commentary, I think, was a really well-articulated setup for the talk that I'm going to give today. And unlike other View from the Edge episodes, I learned getting into this. And by the way, I am not a specialist on or an expert about this topic called the technology trap. So I've spent the last few weeks really thinking about the topic and doing a bit of research around the topic. But the net of it is, it's far more complicated than it seems. And so the presentation I have today is a bit longer than normal. And hopefully that's okay with everybody. Maria is going to interject as we go. If you have questions as we go, please post them. She will ask them so we're not going to wait till the end. We're actually going to try to make the whole thing as interactive as possible. So please, again, I don't have all the answers. Maria doesn't have all the answers. We need your questions. We need your point of view. So please be proactive about sharing. Okay.
Perfect, Grayson. For now, you're getting the congratulations for your new role. Okay. So.
Thanks very much.
Let's go.
Okay. So I love this picture, right? Yes.
It's funny.
So we're gonna like all the shows, we're gonna have some polls, and there's the immediate poll that I wanna ask, which is really the primary question. Has technology, from your perspective, audience, has technology made us, whatever us is, us, you, us, your family, us, your company, us, your whatever, do you believe technology has made us more or less productive? And go ahead and, if you would, take the poll.
Well, that is the poll that we did in social media, and 84% responding that more, 13% that less, and 3% no difference. But as you see, the audience is inclined to thinking that it's more or whatever.
It's more, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we're gonna. That's what we're gonna dig in today. Is it truly? Are we truly more productive, or more importantly, are we more productive in the right kind of ways? And what are the costs associated with that productivity? This was the quote that Maria referenced earlier. U.S. statistic. Net productivity is down. Now, there's a whole other question that we're not going to get into today, which is, how does your organization define productivity?
Oh, well, no. No, let's not go there.
But that's why this is far more complicated than it seems. In the old days, productivity was assembly line productivity, which is how many widgets came off the belt at the end of the day, and how many labor hours were required to produce those widgets. But obviously, in the white collar world, we don't have widgets. And so, an interesting thing for you, audience, is to contemplate within your companies, within your banks, what is productivity at a human level? At a corporate level, it's return on equity, return on assets. But at a department level, what is productivity? But we're not going to go there.
No, Chris, but already, Nicolas Grau Prada says, it depends how we use it. If we use the technology to boost our job, it's going to help us.
Possibly. Yeah, possibly, but maybe not always. And we're going to talk about that. Thank you, Nicola. So this is an interesting stat that I came upon. During an average workday, what are the distractions? And the things that are highlighted in yellow are non-work things. So the point is, people are at work and they're doing their work, but 58% of the distractions are not work-based. They actually involve talking to friends, looking at social media, checking up with kids, and you compare that to the 1950s, 60s, before the technology boom. When you went to work, your only option really was work. I mean, maybe you could talk to a colleague or a peer at the water cooler or in the cafeteria, but when you were at your desk, you didn't have options to be distracted. So that's just and we're going to come back to this too in this commingling of both technology as a productivity generator, but also as a distraction in terms of connectivity to friends, family, whatever, and also even entertainment. So we'll come back to that. The net of it is it's a double-edged sword. So we can either call it the technology trap, which is this presumption of nothing but positive productivity, but in fact, there's some negatives that go with it, or we can call it a double-edged sword. And so I chose for the rest of the presentation to actually treat it like a double-edged sword. There are pluses to it, absolutely. By the way, I'm not anti-technology, but there are also minuses that I think we as a society and as a company, and even if it's a family, need to be much more alert to and much more proactive about. And if you heard Maria's and my conversation a month ago about AI, I think AI is a poster child for this double-edged sword. Profound positive implications of AI and profound potential negative implications of AI. My view is it applies to all technology, not just AI.
Chris, here, Gabriel Nagorny says that in the new times, I guess they are not distract. It's part of the life. So, yes, we're dealing with more things, you can say, or?
Well, I mean, I think it depends on what the intention is, and hold that thought, Gabriel, because it's everything. Well, let me just go 2 more slides, and I'll come back to you too. So, this is the reality. We have allowed a force into our lives, into our relationships, into our work, into everything. The force of technology and the capacities of technology. We have done the same thing with capitalism. I'm not anti-capitalism. I'm not anti-technology. I'm just saying this is the reality. We've allowed this thing to seep into every nook and cranny of how we are, the way we are, what we do, how we do it. And we have to be aware, again, that it has profoundly positive benefits, but it also has troubling negative consequences. And I think our job as a species is to get much more aware and alert to what those negative consequences are and do whatever we can to mitigate them. And again, I go back to AI. It is not just the poster child. It is the multi-headed monster that we're unleashing, and we will benefit from, but we will also suffer from unless we take what's the word? Evasive action. So it triggers for me this when I was at Harvard, I spoke on a panel with Ash Carter, who sadly passed away last year. But he was Obama's Secretary of Defense, really brilliant guy. And he gave a talk at Harvard about what we're talking about today. That and this was a quote that he said that I wrote down and I've referenced it multiple times since. It's that we can't slow down technology, but we have to learn how to steward it. Mm-hmm. And that, again, that's what's happening with AI. But he was talking about this way before AI. This was 2016, I think.
And Chris, exactly on that line, the comment that Nicolas Grau Prada does is, I have to activate focus mode on my phone in order to be more productive. So in a way, well, that's a way to steward, technology. Okay, also can help you, but it's a human behavior, and good for you.
Exactly.
Nicolas, to do that.
Exactly. Hold on one sec. Oops, sorry. So then the natural question is, well, how do you steward it? Okay, if you buy what Ash Carter was saying, okay, I got it. Like, how do we steward it? And the White House is convening, the leading tech guys at least in the U.S., maybe worldwide, to figure out how do we steward AI. Well, I argue, we have to steward all technology, not just artificial intelligence. Another way to say it, how do we avoid the trap, the negative part of technology, or how do we mitigate the minus part, the other side of the sword? It's all the same question. And I think we have to look at it through a lens of both society, which is what the White House is attempting to do, but also what's happening at an organizational level. And then I argue we also have to look at it through what's happening at a personal level. And these are all integrated things, and they ultimately represent a whole human system. You've heard me talk about nothing is discrete, boxes don't exist, everything is actually connected to everything. And so if we're trying to figure out how to avoid the technology trap, how to take advantage of the positive side of the sword and reduce the disadvantage of the negative side, I think we as humans have a responsibility to care about all three facets of this: society, organization, and personal. So the stewarding has to be whole entity. It can't just be me and my life and my organization's, doing something completely different. So if you buy the idea that this whole thing is an integrated system, any system, the quality of any system is predicated on the desired output of the system, right? Like, that's just basic. And go back to the assembly line. A good assembly line produces a certain amount of widgets meeting a certain quality criteria or defects per whatever. And so as we think about all the systems that is call it human condition, what is our intention of that system? And within that, what is the intention of unleashing technology within that system? Now, historically, sorry, let me go here. Oh, so the question there is, well, what does technology enable today? What does it disable today? What should it enable? Which is really, how should we steward it all to achieve that outcome? What is it we want from this investment that will benefit society, our organization, and ourselves? And I'm going to suggest to you, it is not productivity. That is too micro. That is too micro an outcome. It ignores the human need, the human opportunity. It's simply not enough. So as I started thinking about this, and it was like, okay, everybody jumps to technology is all about productivity, but I'm like, but technology does other things as well. It enables us to do other things as well. And so I came at this sort of model of there's three things. There's productivity certainly is the big one, but it also enables connectivity and it also enables entertainment. And they're overlapping. And my point earlier about the distractions in the workday, that one chart I showed, the 58%, what's happening there is connectivity and entertainment are being brought into the workplace, right? Because it's so easy, you can actually be at work and not be working. And I'm not saying that's a terrible thing. I'm just saying, hold on a second. I'm just saying that's what's going on. So then I decided I'm going to break down each of these three facets or benefits of technology. I'm going to look at productivity, connectivity, and entertainment through the lens of what is positive and what is negative about these things. So this is the obvious one. Like, the inference of productivity is you get to do more in the same amount of time.
Yeah.
That's productivity. And and you can work anytime, anywhere.
Yes.
That's productivity. And here's a stat. So you look at this and you're like, that's great. You know, if I'm an employer and I know that 82% of my employees are looking at their work outside of work, that's productivity, right?
Yeah, seems to be like that's. I'm
really
surprised, but
okay. Yeah, this is not. This should. Sorry, this should be a build. It's not building, so I apologize. So another, if you go look below this, another positive is it replaces manual labor. The things that we used to have to do manually, like I think about like a map. We used to have to have a map and figure out where to go. Well, now you just put it in your app and it tells you exactly where to go. And the theory is it allows us to focus on more important things and solve complex problems. So those are real positives. But they're also sort of not always countermanding negatives, but sort of. The negatives are, I think we now live in a world where it can seem like transactions are more important than thought. Because we can do more in the same amount of time, it actually becomes about more, like doing more. Well, what if more is wrong? What if more is strategically not important? You know, it's sort of like the age old, how was your day, honey? And you're like, oh my God, I was so busy. I returned 500 emails today. I'm like, well, what if 450 of those emails weren't actually important? Mm-hmm. And so I think one of the negatives of what technology has done is it's bred this environment of transaction volume. Doing more in the same amount of time, 24 hours, is actually value, and I'm not sure that is always true. Certainly sometimes it's true, but it's not always true. The other thing, the other negative is my and we were just talking about this before the show started, is this idea that if we don't learn the basics of things, it's really hard to imagine that our thinking can be more sophisticated, our thinking can be more creative. It's like the master apprentice. The apprentice has to understand the basics before the apprentice can learn the craft of the master. And so, I have long said the fact that people don't know direction anymore, they don't know the difference between north, south, east, and west because they use a GPS or an app to get places, or that they don't know how to add and subtract or divide or multiply because they use a calculator. That is profound, that is productivity because they don't have to do that thing anymore. But I also think there's a potential consequences if you don't understand the fundamentals. Can you get to the next level of thinking? It's like if you ignored grades kindergarten through 8th grade and went right to high school, could you perform? So I think that for me, there's a concern about losing that fundamental understanding. And I think Chat GPT is another example where it gives you very valid, viable answers to questions, which means you don't have to do the thinking. And I worry that that's a problem because you're not using your muscle, you're not developing your muscle, which means your ability to have more sophisticated thoughts is actually being reduced, not improved. And then the last one on the negative side of this is that I think a lot of this is true, that technology oftentimes is overbuilt. And I think there's a tendency of product designers to not really think through the human truth, not really think through the priorities of the application. And so they just load it up. And I always think of the TV remote, Maria,
Mm-hmm.
It's got like 300 buttons on it, but it turns out there are really only 5 you use. And so why is it designed that way, implying that all 300 buttons have equal value when in fact they don't? By the way, Steve Jobs was I think he was like a savant about understanding how to deliver just the right level of technology and just the right way to meet humans where humans are.
Mm-hmm. So we have many comments about, that slide. So no, hang in there. Gustavo Macias, in reference, I believe, Gustavo, correct me if I'm wrong, that 82% of people connect after their, jobs finish. It's a misunderstood productivity. And then Cindy Agüero says, if 82% of people connect after they finish their job to the email, that can be producing a burnout in our email instead of productivity.
Absolutely. I agree with you both. I actually shared that slide as a implied positive. Like if you're a company, that some company executives would look at that and go, that's great. Our employees are dedicated and they're working after hours. They're responding to emails after hours. But you're both right. Like beware the consequences of that. And I'm not saying, I work any day, all the time, different times, whatever. But I think we all have to recognize that's a negative. There's a potential negative to a positive. And at an organizational level, family level, we need to set guardrails and guiding lights. In the US, and I know in Europe too, some companies forbid, I think VW forbids emails over the weekend. And I'm not saying that's what everybody should do. I'm just saying, what appears to be positive productivity potentially carries a cost. Okay.
And then Oscar Palacios, first agrees with what Cindy is saying, and also says that can be a double abuse on the part of the companies, but also on the workers. And yes, and Nicolas shares good data, Nicolas Grau Prada. In our experience, productivity went down using technology with our salespeople, and also struggles the customer experience as well, as the salespeople have to go to the client's business in order to do the Loom inquiry.
I'm not sure. In our experience, productivity went down.
It went down using technology with our salespeople.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I think that, one of my general platitudes about everything is the answer is always in the middle.
Mm-hmm. It depends. It depends.
No, and so, but my thing, and if you've heard me talk or Maria and my conversation, I always come back to, do we understand ourselves well enough? Do we understand ourselves well enough to know how technology might abuse us, how we might abuse technology, how technology might feed on our vulnerabilities, our fears, our needs, our desires, and then if we, in our understanding, how do we guide technology? How do we steward technology not to hurt us, which it does at times, but to help us more of the time? And that's really, to me, the task. So
this is interesting because it says also that the human interaction, Nicolas, that the human interaction gets affected with the salespeople because they are looking at the screen while interacting with the clients. And I think before you were talking to the person really, but now you are filling in the form probably when you are. So that's true. I never thought about that, but yes.
Well, when I was at Harvard, we would have meetings, a lot of meetings, and we'd be sitting around the table and people would be on their phone while we're in the meeting. And I'm like, and they weren't like taking notes. They were actually like texting. I have this issue with chat. So we're on a Zoom call, and and somebody's putting on chat. I was just looking up whatever, and I'm like, well, that means you're not listening to me, or not listening to Maria. Like I think that's an example where on the one hand it looks like productivity. Like, look, they're in the meeting and they're working on other things. They're like double tasking. But I'm like, yeah, but they're actually not focused on the topic at hand. And again, our job is not volume. Our job is quality. Mm-hmm. And in order to have quality, you have to be able to think. And in order to have thought, you have to be able to focus. And you have to push distraction away, not create it. But that's a human thing. Like I have a theory that transaction volume validates us. I'm like, Maria, honey, how was your day? And you're like, oh, I was so busy, Chris. I was so busy. And that's, you're in your inner ego. Your ego's like, you're really important, Maria. Wow, look at all those emails you got. Wow. But I'm like, but that's not how we create value. I mean, we have to do that stuff for sure. But at least in the white collar world, we create value with ideas. We create value with new initiatives. We create value with strategy. We create value with thinking through how to create high-performing organizations and meet people where they are. We don't create a lot of value by simply transacting.
Writing. Well, Jose Ramirez here says, I receive around 100 to 150 emails daily. However, I prefer to answer them calling people directly instead of writing emails. So some people overabuse because of lack of trust, sending and writing large emails. And yeah, that's true. When you see those emails that you said, oh, really, do I have to read all these now to get to the conclusion? So
I love that, Jose.
I can relate to that.
That is exactly right. And a friend of mine was over last night, and try to make this quick. She's starting a biotech firm. She did her first pitch the other day with 5 of her partners, a big VC firm. And she sent an email after the pitch. It went really well. She sent an email to the 5 partners thanking them for their contribution. And I said to her last night, I said, Anita, call them this morning individually and talk to them and tell them not just thank you, but why their contribution was so helpful. And she literally just sent me a text right before we got on the show. Like, she did it, and she goes, it was unbelievable. The level that you could tell they were just so proud and so grateful, you know, like remember, we're human. We are not machines yet. Okay. So another positive, it eliminates barriers of production, intermediaries, right? Intermediaries, create not a lot of value. Travel agents are intermediaries. They didn't create a whole lot of value. I think the next slide is, this is what happened to the travel agent business. It pretty much plummeted, and then online went the other way. Another positive, it democratized access and the enablement of sharing of assets. Car sharing is a perfect example, but there are many others. I also use M-Pesa, which is the mobile phone company in Africa that provides financial capacity, basically banking ability, to millions and millions of people, not just in Africa, but in Middle East and Europe too. So taking out democratizing access, creating sources of distraction. We just talked about this a lot. This is an interesting stat from the Wall Street Journal. People on average check their email 11 times per hour. I think that's underreported.
I think it's more.
Average number of emails, 87. Share of emails open within 6 seconds of receipt, 70%. So that's interesting, right? That means
it's open with 6 seconds. Okay.
So that means people are staring at their email. Like 70% of all emails are open within 7 seconds of receipt. So what that means to me is people are not thinking, they're transacting. And I'm not sure that that's productivity. Anyway, and this is the big one. This is really the theme. I think the biggest minus is our inability to separate productivity from connectivity from entertainment. It's all sort of commingled now, and it creates massive volume. Like, you can almost not breathe from how much stuff you're doing or attempting to do, whether the stuff is work or life or family or entertainment. It's just this flood, and it's all it's all one massive thing. And I think that ultimately is not productive. The second piece, I'm going to go quicker here. Connectivity. So I did the exact same exercise. Well, okay, what is it? What are the positives of connectivity? We can connect to each other anytime, anywhere. That's an amazing thing that we weren't able to do before. This is a stat. Number of Facebook friends on average, 350 people through Facebook. Compare that to life before social media. Most of us probably had like 50 friends, maybe 100 friends. Now, we could question whether Facebook friends are, in fact, friends.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so acquaintances, or what do we call them?
This is an obvious one, 24/7 access to information, answers, guidance. And now with ChatGPT and other AI tools, content, we can actually have it write our resume. Direct delivery of everything, 24/7. This is interesting, right? Like, e-commerce revenue, this is in the US versus brick and mortar. And this is 2017. It's just continued to go this way. On the negative side, connectivity negative side, I think a loss of privacy for sure. But I think for me, the big one is an addiction to validation. We talked earlier about, validating yourself by how busy we are. I think social media particularly has created this keeping up with the Joneses perspective. Like, I remember my wife when we first got married 10 years ago, whatever, I would find her in the middle of the night checking to see how many people liked her post. And this is personal, this is not professional. She's like, that's probably unhealthy behavior. And then this last one is atomization and anonymization. And this is my biggest worry. That, the human condition is founded on the fact that we are a social species. And the ability of us to become who we are and create the world that we live in is very much predicated on collaboration. Nobody did it individually. And my worry is that the biggest negative impact of technology is we have now atomized ourselves and anonymized ourselves, where we can actually live at home. I live in downtown Boston, and I could not leave my apartment for forever unless I had to go to the doctor. Everything can be delivered. I don't have to go shopping. I don't have to interact with anybody. And by the way, when we do interact with people, sorry, that was another slide. This is another stat. So this is the depression rate in the US of people, young people primarily, 12 to 17, 18, 25, over the last several years, up to 2020. Something's going on here, and I have to believe it partially involves technology and this atomization thing. Another positive, connectivity, no barriers to sharing our opinions, the ability to be seen and heard. Look at this, 4.6 billion people on social media. That's over half the entire population of the world. Wow. So, and the amazing thing is we can, if you write a provocative enough thing, you can actually reach millions, if not billions of people. And compare that to, 20 years ago, we certainly couldn't do that.
We have, Chris, we have a couple of interesting, things that in a way ratify what you're saying. Gustavo Macia says, well, you're in constant anxiety to check your cell phone screen, even when you have not received any message or notification. And then Nicolas Grau Prada goes, more than that, says, well, I think there is something about chemistry there as well. And I agree with it. The satisfaction, oxytocin, you have when a new notification pops up, and some kind of boredom, cortisol when you don't. And I think it's that. It's like,
oh my God. Those are so perfectly human, perfectly honest. I love both of those. That is exactly right. At the end of the day, humans are little kids. We are all little kids. We think we're adult. We think we're grown up. We think we're professional. We think we're very mature. But the truth is, all of us have within us a little child. I have little Chris. Maria has little Maria. Mm-hmm. And little Chris is like, does the world like me? Am I valid? Am I relevant? I want more love. Little Chris is desperate for more love. Every human wants more love. Barack Obama wanted more love. Donald Trump, how much love does that guy want? My
Well,
God.
Nicolas here says, I'm 30 and I prefer self-serve than interacting with someone to do things, to your thing that you don't have to leave your house in Boston to get everything that you need there. And so, yes,
Yeah.
way.
So, Nicholas, I appreciate that honesty. And I would suggest to you that when you get to the end of your life, what you're going to count is not how efficient your life was. You're going to count how many friends you have. So if you want to avoid interacting with people to pay or do things, that's certainly your option and certainly a more efficient way potentially to live your life. But just beware, it comes with a negative. You may not feel it. You're 30 years old. You're going to live forever, and you're not worrying about what you're going to feel on your deathbed. But as your grandfather,
let's use that. Well, but it's true. There are studies that say that people prefer to find the information by themselves than having to interact. There is a little bit of that, and I think it's a speed that you decide what you want, when you want it, versus having to connect in order to get information or so.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
yes, I agree with Nicolas that yes.
I mean, for me, there's a version of this relative to, I live in downtown Boston, and COVID, the combination of COVID and e-commerce is crushing our retail. So retail in downtown Boston is dying. So stores are closing. So what happens to an urban core if retail dies? What happens to the whole city if retail dies? If everybody's just ordering on Amazon and locked up in their apartment, what happens? And what happens is loss of quality of life. What happens is there's no reason to live in a city anymore. And so part of my thing is not only is it healthier to interact with other human beings, but it's also economically important. Because if you start losing your urban cores, if Boston goes out of business, if San Francisco doesn't make its way back, you got a much bigger problem than inefficiency or whatever. So anyway, and then another positive, just integrated functions, the sort of frictionless existence we have where we can pretty much do everything with this thing. That's an amazing positive. The negatives around connectivity, you've seen this, no filters on truth. I'm going to move faster, but so much misinformation out there. It's insane. And again, this commingling of connectivity and productivity and entertainment, I think, is ultimately an issue. And then I'm actually going to skip. I'm just going to do a couple slides because I want to get to the last part. So some definite positives around entertainment. 24/7 access to stimulation. I mean, Instagram is entertainment, but the problem is 24/7. Like, how many people do you think look at Instagram at work?
Well, everybody. Who doesn't? Sorry. Who doesn't?
Anyway,
I'm
just going to jump ahead because I want to get to this is one of my. So again, living downtown Boston, this idea of growing anonymity, it drives me crazy. I get on the train and nobody will look at anybody. Mm-hmm. Nobody will look at anybody. This is exactly what it looks like. It's like, this is not being human, people. This is atomized, anonymized society. And when you replace collaboration with anonymity, I think it's a slippery slope to hell. I really do. Let me just jump ahead. So what the hell do we do? Well, like, what do? We see a lot of the positives. We see some of you buy some of the minuses. Like, what the hell do you do? Remember this thing, we got to look at being a steward through all three lenses. It's not enough to just worry about your company. I think you have to worry about your family, what's happening at home, and I think you have to worry about that picture of the train. Like, you have to worry about what's happening on the street. So I say that the process here is to improve the system is first begin with what is the desired outcome of the system. I talked about this at the beginning. And it's not this. This is what society has held up for 50, 60 years, maybe longer. It's gross domestic product. Economic growth means human progress. I don't buy it. And if you look at the stratification economically in the world, it is not true. If human progress means collective human progress, all of us human progress, GDP as the outcome of the system is not the answer. Is pure play money at a personal level? I go back to, no, it's not enough. The UN sustainability goals are these the outcomes that we're after? I think we're getting closer. It's more dimensional. It's not simply about the money. But I went to this quote from Macron several years ago. He said, for society to be sustainable, you have to restore the equality of chances. And to me, that means this, that you have to give people within a society the opportunity to do all these things in Maslow's hierarchy, to have all of these needs met. And ultimately, the achievement of all these needs, from self-actualization down to the basic needs of food, water, shelter, ultimately results in well-being. So I believe if what we're trying to do is to figure out how to steward technology to maximize the positives and minimize the negatives, the flag we're holding up or the point we're marching to has to be well-being. Human well-being. And if we articulate that and then we start holding things up in terms of technology's capacities, it will be easier for us to understand what's positive, what's negative, and if it's negative, what we can do about it. Second part. So we have this outcome. We need to establish guiding lights and guardrails to increase the chance that existing and new technologies will enable or contribute to well-being. So here's a poll question, quick question. How well does your organization introduce new technologies? So my point is, how thoughtful is your organization when it introduces a new technology in terms of how it's going to impact the lives of the people within your organization?
Well, 71% responded very good, and some 21% okay.
Okay. So let's ask the same question at a household level.
Well, at a household level, funny because it's a tiny bit up, 73% say that very well compared to 21, and okay, let's say 20%, a little bit lower.
And then at a country level?
And at country level, well, the countries are not doing that well because it's 53 very well and 40% okay.
Okay. So that's interesting. So this is the United States' current attempt to steward new technology, aka artificial intelligence. So the White House has issued something called a blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights. Okay? And it's got these 5 components: safe and effective systems, algorithmic discrimination protection, data privacy, human alternatives, consideration of. I read the whole thing. It's completely missing the point. The point being, well, what is the point? What exactly do we want this to do for us? And the default is productivity, but it can't be. Progress alone, productivity as the definition of progress is a problem. Because we saw it with some of the positives. We're more productive, but they carry costs. And the same is true here. Like, we've got to be much more oriented towards an outcome that is whole human, whole society. How does AI lift everybody up? Not just the technology companies, not just white collar, whatever. It's how does this lift everybody in the society up and not hurt parts of society. So my view is the Bill of Rights is lacking real human consideration. When I saw this little blurb, human alternatives, consideration, and fallback, I'm like, oh, great. But then when I read it, it's completely devoid of psychology, of telling the truth about the vulnerabilities that human has and how AI might take advantage of those vulnerabilities. And
Chris, along that line, Cindy Agüero says, I think it's necessary a balance between technology's benefits and personal priorities. In some latitudes, there is legislation about disconnection rights, but it's a personal awareness in reality.
I think that's exactly right, Cindy. I think human, my whole push for human understanding, much more intimate, much more psychology-based understanding of why we do what we do and why we don't do what we should do and why we shouldn't do what we do. I think that understanding has to begin with self. Like if we're not looking in the mirror and seeing our own vulnerabilities and our own frailties and our own weaknesses and our own addictive capacities, I think our ability to understand our organization or understand our family or anybody else is really limited. So I love that idea. Like self-awareness, it all has to start with understanding us. Anyway, I put together this little risk mitigation checklist. So if we're introducing a new technology into the country, into the world, I would love to do this with AI.
How will it? Okay.
Here's the question: what human vulnerabilities and weaknesses will this technology potentially tap into? Like if we could go back in time on social media and ask these questions, I think more of us might have realized that it would prey on our need for validation. Right? It would, and that potentially the falseness of friends on social media would actually contribute to loneliness, because people would realize these people aren't actually their friends. Or they'd look at their friend and say their friend has 500 friends and I only have 22, therefore I'm a loser. But we didn't ask any of those questions. We just let that sucker go, right? Let her rip and see what happens. And again, AI, thankfully, is so powerful that people are like, uh-oh, we need to get ahead of this thing. Well, I hate to tell you, what we need to do is try to catch up. I'm not sure we can get ahead of it, but we at least need to catch up. And the way to catch up, I think, is to start with human understanding. How might this prey on us? How might we be abused by it? How might we abuse it? Anyway, okay, so I'm just mindful of the time. This is sort of combat the existing downsides of technology by rejecting their acceptability, because this is a big one. Like I talk all the time with people about the problems, and everybody agrees, and they're like, yeah, it's a problem. And then they're like, I'm going back. I gotta go return some emails. and we can't keep doing that. We can't keep kicking the can down the road or putting it on my grandchild Emma Sophia to solve. I think we have this responsibility to look at it straight in the face and create guardrails and guiding lights and policies to offset the negative part of the sword. I found this, and this to me is just classically human bullshit. So this is how we're going to do it. We're going to monitor screen time, and then we're going to set limits, and then we're going to have a policy for specific parts of the day. Now, is that better than nothing? Absolutely. For sure. But I think it's naive. I think it's shallow thinking. I think it's like treating humans like little kids. Like, okay, Maria, you were on Instagram yesterday for 47 minutes, and I'd like to see you bring that down to 30 minutes. Like, that's just like, what are we? So my thing is like, it's a much more maybe conceptual, but I think it's actually would be far more effective if we all agree that the outcome of everything is well-being. Well-being society, well-being company, well-being family, well-being individual. And we define that, and then we look at all the tools before us, technology and otherwise, and say, how are they contributing or not contributing to achieving greater well-being? And specifically, what are the behaviors we want to model, not just for ourselves and our loved ones, but for the people that work for us, for the people around us, to get to that outcome. And then the last one is celebrating progress around that. Like turning this into a central tenet of how we operate our society, our company, and our family. And because absent that, I really believe it's a slippery slope to hell. And we end up in this hyper individualized, hyper divided, hyper anonymized, atomized society, which is fundamentally antithetical to what it means to be human. And so when we lose our connection to what it means to be human, I honestly don't know what's left. And I certainly don't know how you regain it. And I think we have a chance right now to change the trajectory, to catch up with AI and technology in general, and start trying to guide it towards this outcome that is truly beneficial for all of us, versus simply about productivity or economic growth.
Mm-hmm. But Chris, in the way that, Nicolas was saying that he puts focus mode. So in a way, you are self-aware of your behavior, and then you put certain things. And this is the same like people that say, well, I'm not going to eat the carbs, or I'm going to exercise 3 times a week. So you put yourself into a position where you can, do the things that you need to do, or put the buckets. So.
Yeah. Was there a question or is that a statement?
No, he did a statement that, it was like, using the focus mode for like, putting his mind into that. So it goes online to what you are saying. Okay, if you're self-aware, it's okay that we as humans put our own guidelines to ourselves, because we know, each person knows himself or herself.
Well.
Oh, no. Well, what?
I don't think
do well. Okay, well, a little bit of awareness. What percentage we can discuss, but a little bit of awareness.
Yeah, I think a little bit. I think we would all benefit from more self-awareness, myself included. And I think, Nicholas, you're right. And also we need to worry about others doing it as well. Again, we don't want to make this all individualized. We have to work within our families and our friend groups and our companies, like, to help people. A lot of people don't even see the negative. Most people, if you said, what's the negative of technology? They'd be like, I spend too much money on streaming. I think everybody, by the way, should do the exercise I did over the last few weeks of building this argument. Like, take out a piece of paper, plus, minus, productivity, connectivity, entertainment. Maybe I missed a couple of benefit buckets. And think it through. Like, what are the pros? What are the cons? And then what do you do about the cons?
And sorry, Chris, because I have a great question here from Jose Ramirez. What 2 or 3 specific actions could you suggest as a technology leader to oversee or steward to our teams to have the balance? That's. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first one is a discussion among the team about what is the intention of not just technology in our organization, but the organization itself, and the people within the organization. What is our goal for the people that work for us? And I think it has to be something in the order of well-being. And well-being means you have to think through, well, what is it humans really want? And use Maslow or any other psychology model you want, but they want more than money, and they want more than a job. And so what are we doing with everything we do, from product to process to technology, to ensure that we're moving towards greater well-being for the people we serve internally and the people we serve externally? I mean, that to me is the big one. A system cannot be great unless you first define what the intention of the system is. And if humans want to declare productivity as the only intention that matters, beware that, man. I think that, so I would say well-being, and then I would have your team do the exercise of what are the pros and cons, what are the pluses and minuses of the technologies that we have, and or the technologies that our employees are bringing into the company of their own volition. And then how might we begin to create policies and or recommendations to ensure that it's mostly positive, that the outcome or the consequences of all the technologies is mostly positive. There's not a simple answer, Jose, and I'm sorry for that, but I think, again, I will say, beginning with the intention, what is the desired outcome of the system, the company system, the societal system, the family system, And I believe it has to be well-being. It has to be more than productivity. I'm going to skip this because we're out of time. Just a couple of quick things. Another one is reject atomization and anonymization. Reject them at an individual level, at a collective level. Reject them, because that is what will kill us faster than nuclear war or anything else. One of the things I do, I think I talked about this a couple of shows ago. I say hello to strangers. I'm activist about it. Mm-hmm. I go to a party, I meet everybody I possibly can. We did it at the conference, right?
Yes. For those of you that were not there, he stand outside the live, where it's like the club where we do the party, and then Chris made a point to say hello to every person that was coming in.
And what I'm trying to do there is not just welcome them. I'm actually trying to model human behavior. Mm-hmm. When I'm on the train or the subway, I don't look at my phone. It's not helpful to our species. So I think, and then measuring progress, like if you define what well-being is and you create, I think there's a slide that I pulled from an old presentation, but imagine if a corporate dashboard looked like this. How much are we learning? How well are we adapting? What are our adaptive behaviors? How well aligned are we? How much do we trust each other? How much do we feel like we're all have greater well-being? How much is that improving? I guarantee you, holding that up as a measure of corporate performance or family performance or societal performance would go a long way to getting people to start thinking differently about their actions and their behaviors and their priorities, like a long, long way. And then the last one is I don't object to this idea that we've allowed technology into us. The benefits have been profound. I mean, so much has improved. Poverty levels down, longevity greater. So a lot of people's lives have been positively impacted, and they will continue to be positively impacted. However, what I've been trying to say to everybody is, if we don't manage the dark side, I think a lot of the positive impacts will be lost. Not functionally lost, but humanistically lost. And so, that's my pitch to everybody is really just try. I gave a speech in Singapore years ago and to a bunch, thousands and thousands of people, and they're mostly technology companies, and I'm like, go forward not as technologists, go forward not as bankers, go forward as humanists. Like, go forward with human understanding as the center point of how you live and how you decide and how you prioritize and particularly how you deploy technology, because it doesn't know what to do. It is just going to do what it was designed to do. So sometimes it hurts us, and the way to mitigate that is to better understand us. So with that, I thank you. I'm sorry for running over.
No, I just have one more question, Chris, if you can take it, if you don't mind. It's like, what do you think about the IA Gustavo Macias and how it will affect the behavior in society? And also, as a comment, Nicolas Grau Prado, so we have a witness, had the pleasure to meet us both personally during the conference. So thank you.
Can you repeat Gustavo's question?
Gustavo Macias says, what do you think about the intelligence and how it will affect the behavior of society?
Well, I gave a talk. Maria and I had a conversation a month ago about this specifically, and Gustavo, if you want a copy of the deck, I think they can see it on our website. I think, can they see it? If you want a copy of the deck, just email Maria or me at fintechamerica's.co, and we'll send you a copy of the deck. I think it's the extreme example of what I've been talking about. I think the positives are profound. I worry about how it will prey on vulnerability. I worry that people, I saw a study recently, 65% of people polled in some survey said ChatGPT could do the job better than them. Now, there's two ways humans would look at that. One way is, oh my God, that means I don't have, no, there are three ways. That means I don't have to do it myself. That's great. Another way you look at it is, oh my God, I might be out of a job. And the third way you look at it, which is the way I was pushing when Maria and I talked about this, is you have to look at that and say, it's not okay to just be okay. ChatGPT can do okay really well. It can even do good pretty well. But you know what it can't do? It can't do great. It doesn't understand nuance. It doesn't understand strategy. It doesn't understand context. Right now, only humans know those things. And so my view is if everybody looks at ChatGPT as a motivator to do more, better, like be better at what we do, to raise our own game, and the net, and we figure out the guardrails so that it doesn't prey on our other vulnerabilities, then I think the net is really profound and positive. If we don't do it that way, and we view it as we don't have to do anything anymore, I'm just going to borrow from ChatGPT to answer any question asked of me, we will become intellectually not just lazy, but dead.
Mm-hmm.
And then this worry that machines will replace us becomes more valid. Like if we can't create more value than the machine, if we can't create more nuanced thought and more insightful ideas, then yes, we have no role in the mix, you know. So I think a lot of it is it's all our choice. It's sort of like the try comment. We can choose to look at AI as a motivator for our own performance versus as a replacement and a replacement of our own need to think, you know. Anyway, I don't know if that's a good answer, but that's an answer. Okay.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you for the community. We are having like so warm messages that really, you know, made my day. Absolutely made my day. And I know Chris is going to do yours, you know, and the words of appreciation. We really appreciate that you take your time. This time always with Chris is a time that you're really taking for you. Everything that we do at FinTech Americas is in a way to, you know, distribute like best practices. How can you propel your career? How it can make easier for you to sell internally what other banks are doing so that your bank can take the lead. But this time is very personal. So we really appreciate that you're participating and taking the time for yourselves to do this.
Yeah, I really do. You know, I just want to echo, you guys, if you know this about me, even if today is the first time you've heard me talk, like I am a humanist through and through. And I really believe we have this wonderful opportunity to modify our behaviors, to better connect with each other, and to better guide the evolution of our world, our society, our country, our company, our family, ourselves, to achieve more meaning, to achieve more satisfaction, more actualization. But we can only do it by accepting or embracing that it's a human first proposition. You know, knowing ourselves, knowing each other is so critical to any positive outcome. So thank you for listening, Maria.
No, a pleasure, Chris. And go and visit Emma Sofia. Come on, you know what you're doing in the program. Just go and see her, okay? And say our blessings to her. And okay, so as we always promote from FinTech Americas, it is crucial to understand that technology by itself is never enough. But the key for technology to promote a positive change is on us and how we adapt to use it for good and in the most strategic and intelligent ways. So before I let you go, next up on FATV, we have an incredible deep dive focused on banking modernization. Don't miss it. We will have amazing speakers from Grupo Promérica, Citibanamex, Banco Superville, and Banco Santander. So to register, just scan the QR code that you will be shown on the screen or click in the link we will share on the chat. Thanks again for all of you sharing and joining us today. And I hope you have a lovely rest of the week.